Hi guys, I'm Brandon Chen. I'm an author of novels, manga, webtoons, and video games. I'm also a not professional, but I'm a big mythology nerd. I integrate mythology into most of my publications at this point. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the pros and cons of integrating mythology into your stories. And I know a lot about this. Obviously, I've done a few series, one of which is an Otome game, a new one called Worship Me. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this in the video, but the link to that Otome game is going to be in the description. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty educational stuff, sorry if I'm super hyper, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. I want you to hit the like button and subscribe, please. I'll give you guys a second. 3, 2, 1, boop. All right, perfect. Let's get into the video. We're going to start off by talking about the benefits to adding mythology to a fictional story that you're doing. So, what are the benefits? Number one, in mythology and religion, part of the story is already written for you. So basically, if you're basing your story off of, or a character off of a existing mythology, that's open IP. And because of that, usually it's easier to come up with ideas because the story's already been written for you, right? The character's already been written for you. So let's take an example. Thor from Norse mythology, very popular character. Marvel has popularized him even more. But ultimately, anyone can put Thor into their story. Now, Thor from mythology has power of thunder and lightning, and that's because of his hammer, Mjolnir. He's a big guy, and he's Norse, and that is all open IP and pretty much canon from the actual mythology itself. And so you're free to use that because it's literally part of the myth, and that's a pretty solid foundation to do whatever you want with it, right? What is the second benefit of adding mythology to your story? 2 is gods are famous. It's kind of like being able to add a free celebrity to your story without getting sued, right? Because it's open IP. No one's out there copywriting, the Monkey King from Chinese mythology, because ultimately those stories were created before copyright was even a thing. So yeah, it's like adding a free celebrity to your story because ultimately you're allowed to put them in your story. And everyone who's reading the story, if they're culturally aware, are pretty much going to understand exactly what you put into the story. Example, like we said, the Monkey King. Someone puts the Monkey King in there, most people who know who that is, and so they'll be pretty excited to see a character that they know and love through many other myths and probably other stories as well in your story. So in my Otome game, which is Worship Me, which is a story about a mortal who's turned goddess that gets banished from Mount Olympus, and basically she's working with a bunch of different gods from different mythologies, including Egyptian, Greek, Norse. I'm trying to learn about what it takes to become a good god. And a concept like that allows me to tap into all the different religions and mythologies out there and all these popular gods and integrate them into my story pretty seamlessly. And whenever a new god pops up, like let's say Bastet from Egyptian mythology, people are pretty excited to see a character that, hopefully they've read about or learned about in school. And, my take on that character. By the way, you can play the game. It's free on Dorian. Link is in my description. And also, if you want to make your own games and monetize, you can also use their platform, Dorian, to do that as well. Now, I want to go a little bit into the hard parts of integrating mythology into your story. So one is obviously sensitivity. You're dealing with something that's open IP, sure. Mythology and religion. You're technically allowed to write about it. It's a free world. No one's copyrighted this. But you're also dealing with something that's quite sensitive because religion is ultimately a big part of a lot of people's lives. So a good example of, being insensitive to religion was the portrayal of gods in Record of Ragnarok, which is a very popular anime manga from Japan, which was ultimately banned. The anime was banned in India for its portrayal of the Hindu religion. So that's one really big thing, is that you have to be very aware of what's sensitive, what's insensitive. How you portray gods and other people's, religions is an important thing, and you want to take that into account before you put that in your story, because that is the fastest way to getting canceled. Like, it's a scary thing. So I mean, even I was writing a few series, and I think I put like Buddha or referenced Buddha in one of my stories, and I was a little scared about getting canceled. It was a good portrayal of Buddha. Like, you just get scared because ultimately those are gods that, people dedicate their lives to. And so to fictionalize that and to put your own spin on that, you want to do it in a way that doesn't negatively give people the wrong idea. So be very careful when you're writing about gods and religion and mythology, because you never know who you might accidentally offend. I think one thing I do in Worship Me, which is really good, is that I try and do a pretty positive portrayal of most of the gods in mythology there. I would say that there's some parts where I do poke fun. So I poke fun at Zeus, for example. If you don't know, in Greek mythology, Zeus is kind of a womanizer. He cheats on his wife a lot. He doesn't treat women very well. He doesn't treat his kids well either, really. He's kind of a mean guy. He's kind of a very mean guy. And I kind of poke fun at that, as I should. But, I don't do it in a way that's cancelable. It's not like I'm not like Zeus is terrible, Zeus is this, Zeus is that. I do it in a way that's like, oh, this is the myth, and, we're in a modern society. Now I can kind of make fun of it a little bit. But also Greek mythology as a mythos is, it's usually a less sensitive when compared to other religions, because not a lot of people are currently or openly practicing worshippers of that mythos, right? When you compare it to like Christianity or Hinduism, for example, or anything of that nature. So very important. That was the first one. Don't worry, there's a few more. Another hard part about integrating mythology into fiction, I would say, is making your interpretation original. If everyone writes Zeus or Thor the same way, then it's gonna be boring. It's gonna feel like Zeus or Thor is doing a crossover into 1,000 different series, and it's always the same version every single time. These characters are open IP, and so the only way for you to stand out is for you to create like a new interpretation or a new version of this character that feels different from the other stuff that's out there. It's tough because you have to strike the balance between writing something that's original and writing something that's also true to the original nature of that mythos, right? You don't want to write something where it's like, whoa, this is not even Zeus. At that point, you might as well just create a completely different character that's inspired by Zeus, for example, and just rename them, rename them something else. That's fine too, but that's a different character inherently. And so being different is where Record of Ragnarok, which is the series that got banned, that's where they succeed, actually. It gives everyone this kind of really weird and wacky character design, and that kind of over-the-top vibe is what we were going for in the Worship Me game, right? So my editor should be throwing stuff on the screen right now, but ultimately, these over-the-top designs, we wanted to appeal to readers in terms of, like, one, making them feel very unique and different from other interpretations of the gods, but also obviously make them very attractive because it's an Otome game. But also we wanted them to stay true to their natural nature of the mythos that they're coming from, because that's really important to, like I said, strike the balance between originality and respecting the original mythos. So make sure your characters stand out, make sure that they feel unique, but also make sure that they are respecting the original stuff. It's a hard thing. I would say the last hard part about integrating mythology into your fiction is obviously research. You need to be very well researched on the mythology that you're talking about or integrating into your story. There's no going around that, because if you get the myth wrong, you're done. You're not done, but it's gonna be quite embarrassing. There's a big backfire to do that. I think there's a big difference between having creative freedom and having a different creative interpretation of a character, because readers can see that. Readers are not stupid. They can tell when you're being creative and different about the interpretation of a character. Where they see through it is when you're like just getting the mythos wrong. They'll know. They're gonna know the difference between you taking creative freedom with a character versus you completely messing up and saying that Sun Wukong is actually a rhino when he's supposed to be a monkey, right? People are going to be like, why did you make him a rhino? There's no reason for you to do that, and then they'll make fun of you. Right, if you get the mythos wrong in a way that doesn't benefit you, inherently you're going to lose a little bit of credibility as a writer. Also lose trust with your readers as well. So not worth it. Do your research. Make sure it's thorough. So as you can tell, while there are those couple benefits to adding mythos to your story, there's also a few cons. It's a tough thing. Sometimes people might think it's easier to just write a fantasy series, right? Because then you can just write whatever you want and make things up. Obviously, you still have to do your own research in different areas, but ultimately, like, integrating mythology into your story is a tough thing. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's not just click and drag, right? But don't guys, I'm not trying to scare you. Don't be afraid of doing research. Don't be afraid of sensitive topics. Don't be afraid of making original interpretation, guys. Ultimately, like, that's something that you have to do for every story you do anyway. I think just for mythology and religion, it's just at a higher level. Like, you just need to do it a little bit more. But the benefits are also very high as well. So weigh the pros and cons if you want. Anyway, I do want you guys to check out my new Otome game. We worked really hard on it. Worship Me. I worked closely with Dorian to serialize this bad boy. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got this female goddess who's trying to learn about godhood, and it's gonna be, if it keeps going as a successful series, then we're gonna integrate as many gods as we want, and you guys can also have a say in what kind of gods I'm throwing in there. That might be pretty interesting. But also the cool thing about the platform, the publisher Dorian, is that if you're a writer, they have this platform where you can kind of create your own games on Dorian for free without needing to code, and you can also make money monetizing the stories that you make, which is honestly, I don't know another platform that's really doing that right now. It's a really exciting time to be a creator, so definitely check that out. All links are in the description if you want to create your own visual novel games, or just play mine. And thanks for watching today's video. Make sure to share this with anyone who is writing a mythology inspired story, or they're thinking about it, and also make sure to subscribe. Peace.